Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Taylor and today is the October TBR. So it is that time of the month. We're going to be talking about all the books that I want to read in October. If you like to read or crochet or just love hanging out, don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. You can also check me out on Instagram at Tatey Creations for crochet content and Tatey Creations Reads for reading content. With all that out of the way, let's hop in. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the books that I'm currently reading, because most of them I'm probably going to be finishing in October. When I'm filming this, it is September 24th. So the first book I'll tell you about is A Gentleman in Moscow. So this is about a gentleman named Count Rostov, and he has been secluded to his hotel in Russia for his entire life. It starts when he's about 32 years old, and it's just about the beautiful life he has living solely in this hotel. And I'm really liking it so far. I'm only about 70 pages in, but I'm pretty confident. I mean, I'm going to finish it, obviously. If not in September, obviously in October. Next is Crush by Tracy Wolff. I am about 50% of the way through this book currently. This is the second book in the Crave series. It is a paranormal romance fantasy series that has 6 books in it, and this is the second book in the series. If you are someone who is really trying to distance yourself from Harry Potter, but you want that paranormal school vibes, I really think you should check out the Crave series. It is young adult, so it does read that way, but our main character Grace is really quirky, she's really fun, and there's a huge cast of really fun characters in these books. I think that for me, these are really good, kind of like brain off. The next book that I am actively reading is The Bible Says So: What We Get Right and Wrong About Scripture's Most Controversial Issues by Dan McKellen. So Dan McKellen is a Bible historian who went to Brigham Young University and then Oxford University, and he is basically explaining Bible theology and different parts of the Bible that traditionally get super weaponized. I'm almost halfway through the book, so different things that have been talked about thus far has been like, did God have a wife? And do assault victims have to marry their abusers? And all of these things. And I think that it would surprise a lot of people the way in which he addresses these things, and how it's almost like we can't look at the Bible through this 21st century lens because you're projecting what you want onto an inanimate object. It also talks about what is the Bible and when was it written? How was it written? And it's just really interesting, and I feel like the way that it's written is very digestible for someone who is not a Bible historian. So I'm really enjoying that. And then I'm also reading Time of Your Life by Jessa Hastings, which is very good so far. We have Isolde and Joa, really high society London. Isolde is a model, she's a supermodel, and Joa is a rock star, and it's about their very tumultuous relationship. I'm about 30% into this book, and I'm really liking it so far. I've mentioned before, I really jive with Jessa Hastings' writing. I think that it's so conversational, and I feel like, I will say, these characters in particular feel just a little bit recycled. Just a little bit. I don't want to say that with my whole chest, because it's literally just a feeling, and who knows. When we get further in the book, maybe I won't feel that way anymore, but it feels kind of like 2 of her other very popular characters, at least in the beginning, but the storyline, I'm kind of like, oh, you know, this is interesting, this is fun, this is cool. And then the last book that I have checked out at the library, I checked it out as an ebook so that I could travel and not have to bring the physical book with me. But I did check out If We Were Villains by ML Rio, and I do really want to read this book. It is time for me to read this book. I'm pretty sure this was on last month's TBR. This month is the month. It's hard. I had a lot of holds come in, and so obviously I wanted to prioritize those. I know everyone's really mad about the Libby update. But yeah, so that is everything that I'm currently reading. So I'm hoping to get all these done by October 1st, but you know, I think that's a little bit of wishful thinking to get, what, 5-6 books done in the next 6 days. You know, I do have a day job, you know? Now let's get into the TBR. So the first book I'm going to talk about is actually on my Kindle. It is The Pumpkin Spice Cafe by, I believe it's like Lori Gilmore. I've heard good things, I've heard bad things. Essentially, it's just a little fluffy romance, and to be honest with you, I could probably go for a fluffy romance right now. The world is crazy, and I just want something to turn my brain off to. And especially after you see the rest of this TBR, you might understand. But that's really all I have to say about that one. So the next one is Walden and Civil Disobedience by Henry David Thoreau. I feel like I've had so many arrows pointing me towards reading both of these, actually. So I just finished The Spirit of Justice by Jamar Tisby, and you'll hear about that in the September wrap-up. And it was a collection of stories about justice, people who had like the spirit of justice in them, specifically on like race-based things. And it was through the lens of like Christianity. And Civil Disobedience actually inspired MLK Jr. So I like saw that, and earlier in this year I read The Goldfinch, which I didn't really like, but I'm really drawn to the concept of Walden, where he just kind of like goes off into the wilderness to like find himself, because I think we all think we're going to do that and then we don't. So lots of arrows are pointing me towards reading Henry David Thoreau, and I am excited to finally jump into this. Next is The Name She Gave Me, a novel by Betty Cullen. So this is actually a novel in verse, and this is about a girl named Wren who lives on a garlic farm in central Maine, and she was adopted, and she is trying to get back to her family roots. So the reason why I want to read this book is because it is the extemporaneous reading poetry book for Minnesota for this year. So this is the last year that they're going to be using this book. I didn't get around to reading it my first season of coaching, but they're using it again. I want to read it this season, and they're starting to vet new books for poetry for next year. So I want to read this, see what they, you know, kind of are looking for. I did Google like young adult books written in verse, and I found some ones that could be really, really good that will be on my TBR over the next couple months, so that I can kind of like present those to the board. I would love to get more involved in like the Minnesota State High School League and all of the speech stuff that comes along with that. So I want to read this, kind of see what they're into. This is the category that I did in high school, but I read Spoon River Anthology. Maybe that dates me a little bit, but I really liked it, and that one was really easy because every page was a new resident of the fictional town of Spoon River. So this one's a little different as it's clearly a novel, but we'll see. We'll see what we do, right? So I do plan on reading this, and because it's in verse, I don't think it'll take me very long, but I haven't read a book in verse in a very long time. A lot of the poetry books that I read are much more like that Tumblr kind of poetry, that more digestible stuff that really took off in like 2020. That's what most of like my poetry books are. So I just want to, I think it's time to expand, you know? Next is The Humanity Archive, Recovering the Soul of Black History from a Whitewashed American Myth by Jermaine Fowler. So this is basically just myths and things that the American history gets wrong. And I have had this on my TBR for a bit. I have been plowing through some very good nonfiction recommendations. This is one from Monty Mater on Instagram. I really like her nonfiction recommendations. So far, the ones that I've read by her have been absolutely great. So, you know, just keeping in that trend. This is not one that is on an audiobook, and it is a little bit thicker. It'll take me a little bit of time to read, but I'm excited to do so. This next one was in my most recent book haul, and this is probably the one that I want to read the soonest. So excited. So this is Amelia Zola's The Lady's Paradise. This is actually my first Oxford World's Classics. So this is about the rise of the department store in France, and it follows a store owner manager and how he exploits his female customers and his female workers, and how some women try to fight back against that. I think that this will be a really cool critique of capitalism, and I'm excited to kind of see what it holds. The next one is Old Time Religion by E.H. Lupton. So this is the second book in the Wisconsin Gothic series. I read Dionysus in Wisconsin a few months ago, and I was like, oh, this book is like so winter, so fall, so cozy. I wish I had read it then. So I thought that this book would be fall, winter, cozy as well. I was so wrong, and if I had just read the first page, I would have known. But I do still think that I want to read this in the fall, something about the paranormal romance of it all. This is still following Ulysses and Sam. They are figuring things out. Ulysses finally decides to go back and get his PhD when one of his ex-girlfriends shows up with a problem. So her name is Livia, and she's having a hard time sleeping and dealing with magical stuff. So Ulysses and Sam gotta figure out what's going on with her. So I'm excited to dive back into this world. Something about just like reading a book based in a place that like I loved so much. I actually spent 2 summers on the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus taking classes, and it was some of the most fun times of my life, and so reading this definitely like makes my heart happy. Alright, this next one is definitely just for fun. So this is A Short History of Drunkenness by Mark Forsyth. How, why, where, and when humankind has gotten merry from the Stone Age to the present. With everything that is so crazy in the world right now, I really think that I need something, particularly a nonfiction book where I can still be learning things, share fun facts that maybe aren't so doom and gloom with my friends. Some of the chapters include the prehistory of drinking, Sumerian bars, ancient Egypt, the Bible, Dark Ages, drinking in the Middle East, the Viking symbol, just like a lot of different things. And the text is really big, which makes me think that maybe it'll be a little bit more digestible, and this is just a teeny tiny little guy that I think will be really fun to read and then share with my friends and family. Because sometimes I be reading nonfiction books and I'm like, oh my god, did you know all this stuff? And then they're like, Taylor, you gotta take a seat. This is too much for me right now. And I'm like, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm a very intense person. I really love to talk, and I love talking about what I'm like reading about and what I'm learning about, because one thing I've noticed in being an adult is sometimes if you feel like there's nothing going on in your life, of course there's always things going on, but it's like you wake up, you work, and then what do you do? I feel like more people, if they were maybe reading, they would have more things to talk about other than gossiping or complaining about life. So that's just my 2 cents on things, but I have a few more books to get into. So this next one is Sappho, Stung with Love, Poems and Fragments. So Sappho is a poet that lived on the island of Lesbos. I'm sure we can imagine what word came from that. And I bought this book a while ago because I was very drawn to it. And it's time. It's time for me to read this and really just dive in. I was at a coaches conference last weekend, and people were talking about poetry versus program oral interpretation and what strays students away from poetry. And one thing that I said during like the open discussion portion of the session is I feel like a lot of people don't take the time with poetry. When I think about that now, I'm like, well, I'm not taking time with poetry, so I want to take more time with poetry. So this is part of that, and I need to be okay with things taking more time. I have decided that I want to kind of dissociate myself from the want to read so many books, and I want to read bigger and harder books. I've mentioned before reading Paradise Lost and how that has been really difficult for me, and so I'm waiting for the audiobook to come back to me at my library so I can restart that again. But I have been thinking about it a lot, and I think with reading texts that are more challenging, it helps my brain stretch in better ways, I guess. Like reading, whether it be really like smut, all this stuff, or the most intellectual thing in the world, I think that it stretches your brain whatever you're doing. But I think for myself, I want more And that's just how I feel right now. And maybe next year I'll be like, I need to take a break, because when I finished college, I actually couldn't learn, or like I felt like my brain didn't want to learn anything for like 6 months. It was really, really difficult because I was so burnt out from my undergrad. And it's not like I did a ton of reading, it was just so much all the time. So, you know, we go through different phases, and what I want to do is try and capitalize on the phase that I'm going through in life. You know, honor me in the right now. I'm also trying to read through my physical TBR. We're doing our best. So the next book is Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. I have had this book for a while. I've wanted to read it for a while. I have read Wuthering Heights by, I believe that one's Emily Bronte. And I liked it just fine. You know, some people are like, the best classic ever. I didn't really feel that way. I'm interested to see what I like, if I like Jane Eyre. I read Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier earlier this year, and I really, really, really liked that. A lot of people say that Rebecca is kind of slightly based on this, or just, you know, they're like cousins of each other. So I'm definitely excited to hop into this one. And then the last book I have for you is the third book in the Crave series. This is Covet by Tracy Wolff. One thing I love about these books is they are so consistent in their branding. All my books are like the same size. They all look the same. They look like they're supposed to be a part of the same series. So I'm excited to keep, you know, going in this world. Like I said, these are rereads for me. I've read the first 4, but the last 2 weren't out when I first started the series. So those are the ones I'm trying to get up to, because I don't remember everything. Because I think I read these 2021, 2022. Like, it was a long time ago. And when you read so many other things, your brain can't keep it all without some review. You know what I mean? Alrighty, that is all I have for you guys today. Make sure to let me know what you're going to be reading in October down in the comments below. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!